Now remember, missiles don't go through mountains, but missiles can sometimes curve around a mountain. You see, yeah, just like that. Hello! I am Aoyala Ipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. Alright, I got the F-15J here, and you know the drill. This is a public lobby, there are a bunch of enemy players over there, and I'm gonna go slaughter every single last one of them while I explain how this plane works. This F-15 here is one of 3 low-tier 13.0 F-15s. And man, are these low-tier F-15s fun. Bit funky, but fun. This one here is the Japanese version. The other 2 low-tier F-15s are the American F-15A and the Israeli Baz. This plane is extremely similar to those two, and basically everything I say about this plane will apply equally to those two. Now, there are basically 2 kinds of 13.0 jets. First kind is there are glass cannons with Fox 3s and outdated flight models, like the F-4 Ice, the J-37D, the J-8F, the Kafir C-10, you know, stuff like that. The other kind of 13.0 jets get AIM-9Ms and good flight models. So the low tier F-15s, the Gripen I featured a few weeks ago, that one French F-16A, and the upcoming F-2 Premium for Japan. What this means is that the 13.0 spam rammers tend to be tricky for most players to fly well, because their flight models are not particularly forgiving. But they do tend to be the kings of flat maps of this battle rating. By comparison, the 13.0 AIM-9M jets tend to be much easier to fly because their flight models are a lot more forgiving, and they are also the kings of mountain maps. The F-15J and stuff like it make excellent terrain ambushers. The last thing you want is some guy with AIM-9M sneaking around the hills until they pop out and are like pew pew pew, and then you're all dead before you can react, which is kind of what's happening to this team. That's how they're all gonna die. This is going to be a classic hide behind a rock with AIM-9Ms video, or it would be if I was using AIM-9Ms. The F-15J gets AAM-3s. That's the only real difference between this jet, the F-15J, and the American F-15A and Israeli Baz. And AAM-3s are basically an improved version of the AIM-9M. Now saying Gaijin gave me an improved version of the AIM-9M might sound inherently terrifying to some longtime viewers, but it's funny. When I first test flew the F-15J like over a year ago actually, I got double-digit kill streaks in 3 of the first 4 games I was in, and I was like, wow, these AAM-3s are really good. And then I realized I had accidentally loaded AIM-9Ms. I'd never actually used the AAM-3s, and basically I got confused by the colors like an idiot and loaded the wrong missile. And I didn't notice for a few matches because everyone was dying anyways. This is basically a funny way of saying that it's pretty hard to improve upon a missile that can already make entire teams disappear. So yeah, the AAM-3 is better. It's a little harder to dodge, it turns a little better right off the rack. You know, the AIM-9M can struggle a little bit close range at certain angles. The AAM-3 is a bit more forgiving in that area, but you know, these missiles are basically the same thing. It's not a huge upgrade. And if you want a really detailed breakdown of how to use missiles like this effectively, go watch my Gripen video from a few weeks ago, because anything I would say here about it really would just be repeating what I just said there. But yeah, AAM-3s are awesome. They are the selling point of this jet, but it also gets 4 radar missiles in addition to the AAM-3s. And the main challenge for me in figuring out how this particular jet works is how the hell does the radar work? I had a lot of trouble figuring out how the radar worked. But before I go into that, I need to quickly thank War Thunder live user Games227 for making me this custom skin you see on this jet. He reached out to me and asked if I wanted a custom skin, and I said sure. He said, what do you want? And then I told him, you know, this game has a serious shortage of things that look cool and are purple. So go make me something that is badass and purple, and that he did. I'll link this camo in the description if you want to get it yourself. It's built specifically for the F-15J Kai, but you can get it to work on any F-15 pretty easily. I'd also like to give a thank you to this video's sponsor, Better Raid Shadow Help Legends VPN. I'm just kidding. I'd like to give a thanks to Ducky Yandere, Flo Yandere, Ducky Yandere again, and Rocket in a Maid Suit for their super thanks. And you know what? I'm gonna thank Ducky Andre a 3rd time because he gave me 50 bucks. Okay, so as I said, the main challenge I had figuring out what made this particular jet tick was the radar. I screwed around with it quite a bit, but I just could not get it to work right. And I've flown the F-15A and the Baz before. It's been a while, but I don't remember the radar sucking on those jets. So I started hopping to the American and the Israeli versions of this jet to test out their radar. They have the same radar as the F-15J, so it's supposed to work the same, but that doesn't mean it does. Guys, you could have modeled something wrong. And you know, it's funny, their radars also sucked. And the issue was that they were really susceptible to just random crap, basically. I could lock onto people and launch the missiles no problem, but the radar just wasn't able to handle random crap well. Like, if your target drops chaff and does a loop, like not even notch it, just like a loop or even like some turns, that will often confuse the radar. And forget multipathing. If someone is not like silhouetted against the sky, that will also often screw up the radar. I know a lot of jets struggle with look down, shoot down, but you know, this jet's particularly bad at it. So I started doing some incognito matches where I was just fiddling with the radar to like see how it would work in practice. And then I had a stroke of good luck. A Yam of War of the Pahag's squadron found me, killed me with his own F-15, and then laughed at me and was like, ha ha ha, I found you and killed you with my own F-15, funny Balman. Great! That guy probably knows how the radar works on this thing. So I go and ask him, hey, does the radar suck on this thing, or am I just using it wrong? He's like, yeah, no, it definitely sucks. And then Lord Togco666 said he likes turtles, and then there was some random angry person calling other players the R word, welcome to War Thunder. So I then hit up a few other fans, and for a second opinion, they were like, yeah, no, the radar just sucks. Like, maybe I was just remembering wrong, or maybe it got nerfed or something at some point, and I just didn't hear the news. I don't know. Also, shout out to Aetherblade, in-game name Mr. Puppy31. He was one of the fans I hit up. He's also a maniac who has broken the world record for low-tier F-15s multiple times. Anyway, so let's get back to the sucky radar and how I deal with it. So the way I score the circle is I just wantonly spam the AIM-7Ms at people, and sometimes they kill people, and then I don't have to use an AAM-3 to do it. The main weapon on this thing is definitely the AAM-3, and if I leave any AIM-7s on the rack, it will hold up my AAM-3 reload. So yeah, whatever, they're missiles to spam. And as you may have noticed throughout this match, if you've been watching the background footage instead of just listening to my voice, which, hey, look, I'm not judging. Viewer retention is viewer retention. But as you may have noticed, those AAM-3s are goddamn terrifying. I'm just mowing down everyone with them. And that's because they synergize really, really well with the F-15 on this kind of map. So even though half of your missiles are radar missiles, and those are kind of lackluster because the radar sucks in this thing, the AAM-3s more than make up for it. That's what sells this plane. So basically, the AAM-3/AIM-9Ms, which are very similar, are a short-range missile that is almost impossible to flare. So if you get close to a group of people and you have the range right, you can just mow them all down. It's kind of like the War Thunder equivalent of a shotgun. And it's relatively easy to get in just the right range to do that if you're on, say, a map with a lot of terrain features like this, like a mountain map, because you can just use the mountains to sneak up on them. And the F-15 is particularly good at that because the F-15 is a pretty fast jet, and it's maneuverable, and it holds its energy well. And that means it can sneak through mountains really efficiently, really quickly. If you lose sight of an F-15 out in the hills somewhere, that F-15 can basically be anywhere within a few seconds or a minute. And even if you figure out where the F-15 is, you still have to actually catch it, which most planes will struggle to do. That is what makes this airplane so good at ambushing, which synergizes well with the fact that it also has perfect missiles for ambushing. And that's before I mention that this jet gets a ton of countermeasures for this battle rating. So you can just be preemptively spamming countermeasures while you're out in the open, and then you can disappear back into the hills. Like, spamming countermeasures won't make it impossible for someone to hit you with a missile, but it will make it annoying, and it will probably make it take a little more time. And if you're only giving people a small time window to kill you before you disappear again, then yeah, the countermeasure spam actually does matter quite a bit. And to be clear, I'm only highlighting one way to play this jet. There are other ways to play this jet, actually. For example, the tactics I showed in my Grippin video a few weeks ago, where I wiped out teams on a flat map, yeah, that stuff will also work on this jet just fine. Honestly, I figured if I was going to cover both jets, one should feature me using ambush tactics to kill everyone, and the other should feature me using math to kill everyone. But both approaches, again, will work fine on both jets. The flight models on the 13.0s that don't have Fox 3s buy you a lot of options on how to play them. And while I wasn't planning on it, I'm almost certain I'll have to show you something similar again in a few weeks when the new patch comes out, because Gaijin is finally adding a premium that can fill this role, a 13.0 jet with AAM-3s or AIM-9Ms. And in this case, it's the Japanese F-2A ADTW. And that one appears to get radar that doesn't suck, which is exciting. And you'll be able to buy that with my new store link. Yeah, as I explained in my last video, I became a War Thunder partner. And I became a partner while a squadron was simultaneously raiding a random Discord server and mocking me for not being a partner. So I made a video laughing at their absolutely impossibly bad timing, and the fact that I was warning them and they ignored it. And there is overwhelming evidence to suggest that they were not happy about being turned into marketing material, which it's too bad, I guess. I mean, if you go around trying to rage bait people, it's kind of hard to complain if you're the one who winds up upset. But my decal isn't finished yet, so make sure you read this disclaimer I sent those poor guys before you buy anything with the link in the description. And yes, I am about to shoot that F-117 with an AAM-3. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Use a radar missile? He's an F-117. I mean, if I went to guns, I might fly into his carcass. That's the only way he could kill me, right? In TTAA Top Tier Air Arcade, every time you get shot down, you basically get demoted into a worse jet. So if you let an F-15 sneak through the hills and snowball your whole team, after a couple cycles of that, it starts to get pretty oppressive. This is why it is important to stop people while there's still time. And speaking of mowing down entire teams, I got quite a few decal suggestions last video when I asked for them. And first, I want to thank everyone for following my instructions and not submitting anything that took longer than 20-30 minutes to make. Every single last one of you did a great job half-assing these submissions. However, there can only be one best submission, and the best submission was this one. To be clear, it's not the best idea. No way in hell is that going to be a decal. I'm just saying it was the best submission. Although then again, if you think about it, it might be more appropriate to use the F-18 here. After all, that video had a second plane. I did get some suggestions that inspired parts of the decal design I'm planning, but I'm not going to go into details about that until the decal is finished. But anyways, back to the background footage here, back to the match I'm showing you. That F-117 was the last enemy player, and as you can see, that entire enemy team is now dead. Just one short of 2 dozen. Anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and comment to feed the algorithm. And remember, if you subscribe and ring the bell, you won't need to remember how to spell Elipe next time you want to watch one of my videos.